The alien fleet arrived like an eclipse that would never end. Their ships blotted out the sun. Their voice filled every screen. And their first words to humanity were simple. Kneel. No one moved. From orbit, the Zerath Dominion watched our world through thousands of cold, unblinking sensors. To them, Earth was a minor species, technologically backward, emotionally volatile, strategically irrelevant. Easy prey. They'd crushed 100 worlds before us, each falling faster than the last. Surrender, they said, was mercy. Resistance, they promised, meant extinction. Their message echoed through every broadcast system on Earth. Humans of Sol 3. You have 24 hours to yield your sovereignty. Failure to comply will result in planetary cleansing. Cities went silent. Power grids faltered under the weight of panic. And yet, beneath that silence, something stirred, something old, buried deep in the DNA of a species that had clawed its way out of ice ages and firestorms. In the war rooms beneath London and Washington, generals argued. Scientists scrambled. Civilians prayed. But no one spoke of surrender. The Dominion expected fear. What they saw instead were people digging trenches in their streets, volunteers forming defense networks, and children carrying messages for resistance cells. Humanity wasn't preparing to die. It was preparing to fight. On the ISS Ares 9, the first human ship to pierce low orbit after the blackout, Captain Rhea Solari stared at the alien blockade filling her view screen. The Dominion fleet glittered like knives against the black. They expect us to beg, she whispered. Then let's make them regret expecting. Her crew didn't answer with words, only with the steady rhythm of switches flipping, weapons charging, and heartbeats quickening. Down on Earth, civilians painted a single word on their rooftops, visible from orbit in burning lights. Defy. When the 24 hours passed and the aliens awaited submission, the world answered with a sound they'd never heard before. Every radio frequency on Earth transmitting the same signal, the same phrase, spoken in every human language. We don. In the Dominion flagship, silence hung heavy as their admiral studied the defiant transmission. Then, for the first time in the Empire's long history, an alien officer whispered, "What if they mean it?" The Dominion thought they were fighting humans. They didn't realize they were fighting humanity itself, an idea that couldn't be killed. By the third month of the invasion, Earth should have been dust. Every known model said resistance would collapse. But instead, the Dominion's war front was collapsing under something no strategy could predict: human persistence. Every time the Dominion adapted, humans changed the rules. Every defeat became a lesson. Every death became data. They didn't just fight back, they learned faster than their enemy evolved. From orbit, Dominion observers saw the impossible. Destroyed human outposts rebuilt overnight. Burned cities glowing with makeshift power grids. Hospitals running on jury-rigged alien tech, patched together by mechanics with no training and too much determination. They repair themselves, one alien officer whispered. No, his commander replied. They refuse to stay broken. By now, whispers spread across the stars. Refugee ships from fallen worlds intercepted Earth's transmissions, stories of a species that defied the inevitable. For the first time in the Dominion's 1,000-year reign, their enemies stopped running. On the edge of the Orion cluster, exiled civilizations began sending signals to Earth, weapons blueprints, coordinates, fragments of ancient tech. They didn't ask for leadership. They asked for hope. And humanity gave it freely. The Dominion fleet tried to block transmissions. It failed. Because humans weren't broadcasting from towers anymore, they were sending their messages through the stars themselves. A global resonance system called Project Echo, built using quantum harmonics, turned every ion storm and magnetic flare into a carrier wave for one simple phrase. We are still here. When the Dominion finally launched their largest assault, the Siege of Earth, they came with everything. Hundreds of ships. Planetary disintegration cannons. Armies bred for sterilization. But the sky wasn't empty anymore. From the black of space emerged vessels never seen before, a ragged fleet of alien survivors, bound together under one flag, the human flag. "You gave us a reason to fight," said the Vathari commander on an open channel. "Now we'll give you the sky." For the first time in galactic history, species that had once fled from the Dominion stood side by side with humans, not because of fear, but because of faith. The battle that followed wasn't clean. It wasn't glorious. It was brutal, desperate, and beautiful. Humans in patch suits leapt from ships with jury-rigged thrusters, manually boarding Dominion cruisers. Alien pilots sacrificed themselves to shield human transports. The void became a graveyard of courage and chaos. And as the Dominion fleet broke formation, their admiral heard a sound he had never heard before in all the years of conquest. Cheering. From the enemy. From the dying. From the free. As the battle raged, Captain Rhea Solari's damaged Ares 9 broke through the enemy line. Her comms officer shouted over the static. "Captain, they're retreating!" But Rhea only stared at the vast burning horizon and whispered, "No, they're running." And across the galaxy, the message echoed once more. A human voice carried on every frequency, every signal, every dying star. "We don't surrender." The Dominion's first mistake was assuming Earth would fight like every other world. The second was believing we couldn't adapt. When the first orbital bombardment began, the night sky turned white. Cities crumbled, satellites fell, and the air itself screamed under kinetic fire. But humanity had already disappeared underground, into tunnels, bunkers, and shadows built for one purpose: survival. The aliens didn't understand retreat as strategy. They mistook silence for surrender. They didn't realize that in every moment of quiet, humanity was learning. Within hours, Dominion troops landed on a burning planet expecting submission. Instead, they found chaos, not the chaos of defeat, but of resistance. Guerrilla cells rose from the ashes. Farmers turned irrigation drones into missile launchers. Mechanics converted subway trains into armored carriers. Civilians fought alongside soldiers. No command center. No single leader. Just a million minds refusing to die. On the orbital front, Captain Rhea Solari's ISS Ares 9 became a symbol of impossible defiance. With scavenged tech and outdated weapons, her crew pulled off maneuvers Dominion war algorithms labeled illogical. That's what terrified them most. "They don't follow patterns," said one Dominion tactician. "They improvise." "No," replied the admiral. "They adapt." Every planet the Dominion conquered before Earth had been predictable. They fought with reason, order, logic. Humans fought with something else: emotion, desperation, fury, love. When the aliens targeted major cities for extermination, something unexpected happened. The human network responded faster than Dominion communications could track. Underground mesh systems, quantum-linked using abandoned satellites, created a living intelligence across the planet. Soldiers on opposite sides of the world shared coordinates in milliseconds. They called it the pulse. It wasn't AI, it was humanity itself, connected. And then came the turning point. The Battle of New Delhi. A Dominion dreadnought descended to cleanse the city, but human engineers reprogrammed weather control satellites to form a storm that blinded targeting systems. Within the chaos, hundreds of modified civilian drones launched upward, carrying what the aliens thought were explosives. They weren't. They were EMP payloads tuned to the Dominion's neural command frequencies. The ship froze midair. And from the shadows, Captain Solari's Ares 9 emerged through the clouds, engines howling like thunder. "For Earth," she whispered. "For all of us." One torpedo. One shot. The dreadnought fell, splitting the sky open as fire rained down in shards of alien metal. That night, the Dominion fleet pulled back for the first time. They called it a strategic repositioning. But the galaxy knew what it really was. Fear. Every transmission between Dominion ships carried the same quiet, impossible question. How can a dying species fight like that? On the command bridge of the Dominion flagship, the Admiral stared at Earth's glowing blue sphere. He turned to his officers and said, almost to himself, "They don't fight to win. They fight so they can keep fighting." And somewhere, deep within the static of intercepted human transmissions, one voice whispered through the interference. "You should have left us alone." The war was over. The Dominion's flag lay in ashes. But the galaxy didn't understand. Humans never fight for victory. They fight for what comes after. The Dominion fled into the outer dark, their warships burning trails across the void like falling stars. For the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy was free, and it had been freed by a world that was supposed to kneel. Earth was scarred beyond recognition. Cities were fractured mosaics of steel and light, half ruins and half rebirth. But amid the wreckage, humanity built again, faster, stronger, with help from hands that had once feared to touch them. The survivors of 20 species gathered on Earth's surface. Some walked on legs, others on claws or tentacles, but all stood in silence before the blue and green world that had refused to die. "You were supposed to be a myth," whispered the Vathari ambassador. "And now you're our beginning." Captain Rhea Solari stood at what was left of the United Earth Defense Command Tower, now transformed into a council hall of light and metal. Her once battle-worn uniform was patched with alien sigils, marks of unity, not conquest. She spoke to the gathered representatives of liberated worlds. "We didn't win this war alone. We didn't win because we were the strongest. We won because we refused to be what the Dominion expected us to be. They wanted subjects. They found equals." The room fell quiet. Even the stars outside seemed to hold their breath. The Dominion's vast archives, captured in the final assault, revealed something horrifying. They hadn't just sought to rule the galaxy. They'd been preparing to erase it. The species they enslaved were intended to be replaced with engineered replicas, obedient and sterile. The extinction clock was already ticking. And so, humanity did what it always does best. It adapted. Within a year, Project Ares became the Orion Concord, a fleet built not for war, but for rebirth. Ships carried seeds to dying worlds. Engineers rewrote atmosphere processors. Doctors healed wounds that no species had dared treat. Humans became the one thing the galaxy had never seen before. A force of restoration. From the edge of the Milky Way to the silent moons of Vega, one phrase spread faster than any empire had before it, a declaration etched into every ship hull, every beacon, every world that rose from ruin. "We do not surrender. We rebuild." And for the first time in the long, cold history of the stars, hope had a human face. Final scene. Rhea Solari stood aboard the rebuilt Ares 9, watching Earth shrink behind her as the fleet prepared to jump into the unknown. Her first officer turned to her and asked quietly, "Captain, where to now?" Rhea smiled, eyes reflecting the glow of countless worlds reborn. "Everywhere they told us not to go." And with that, humanity's fleet disappeared into the dark, not as conquerors, but as keepers of the... Because when humanity finally took the stars, the universe learned what it meant to live free.